Righty, guys, welcome. We are getting ready for part 2 of Equitable ELA. I hope everyone has done their homework. So with that being said, let's get started. Welcome to part 2 of Equitable ELA. And we want to recap. So we may have a smaller group today because a couple of schools have emailed me and said that they have their department meetings today. So we'll just go ahead and get started. All right, so let's recap. Can someone tell me what is a mirror and what is included in the mirror? Because we have some people that are here that were not here at the last session. So if some brave soul would unmute yourself and kind of give them the gist. What is the mirror and what is included in the mirror? Hello.
Not everybody all at once, please.
Not everybody all at once. And if you don't want to unmute, you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
What is a mirror? It's the way we look at things. Okay, Miss Brown. Yes. Can you be a little more specific? She said no.
She said no.
I love you. Okay, so when we think about the mirror, remember that the mirror is what we see when we stand in front of the mirror, okay? It is our own, yes, Miss Jones, it is our own perspectives. It is the biases that we hold. It is our teaching philosophy. Remember, we talked about the equity consciousness. So it is who we are as a person. It is all of those experiences that have compiled over the years of our lifetime, okay? So what is the mirror? Now, this is homework. So I need at least one person to tell me what is the mirror of your classroom for those of you who did homework. Y'all are mighty quiet today. Okay, from your homework, what is the mirror of your classroom?
So look at your frames that you created based on the surveys that you gave your kids.
Do you want us to read it? Or?
Yeah, you can just tell us, give us a general synopsis of what is the mirror of your classroom.
Okay. Well, I didn't have a lot of kids that day. I only had 4 that day. So.
Okay, that's fine.
But my mirror, I have it written down. Do you want to like word for word?
No, ma'am. You could just tell me in a general sense.
Okay.
What is the mirror of some of the students in your class?
So my class at the time, I had 4 kids. So it was 75% Caucasian, 25% African American, all English speakers. What else was it? Heterosexual, 3 boys and a girl, 11 and 12-year-old students. I only had one white male is classified as ADHD. All of my students resided in the city limits of Greenville. They're not considered upper middle class, but they fall between middle class and I guess lower middle class. All of them are in the correct grade. Their family structures are 3 single mom households and 1 student being raised by an older brother. I found that very interesting. A great majority of them, they enjoy playing outside, like any type of outdoor things, and video games. And their experiences have shaped their lives. Okay, their lives revolve around the idea that they are still able to enjoy their life despite the challenges of COVID-19 and the changes it has brought to their lives. So they're very optimistic kids.
Okay, so Ms. Brown, since you volunteered, I'm gonna make sure I get something special to you. But did you have an aha moment doing this?
I did.
Okay, so could you share just something that you found valuable in
they're optimist. They're very optimistic, which I found that to be. I guess it was startling in a sense that it was positive because there's so many bad things going on. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them said, "I love my life. I love my life the way it is. I enjoy my life," and I was just like, "Okay."
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So what we see, guys, is it's important to take time to take the time to figure out what the students in your class are actually exposed to so you understand who they are. I think when Miss Brown was explaining her class frame, it was interesting to find out that she had one that was being raised by an older brother. And so these are the things that you don't necessarily see or know or find out about your kids unless you do the student profile. So you can definitely find a way to relate to your students and texts that are relevant to your students by digging a little deeper into who they are as individuals. Okay, so I want to mention that it is vitally important that students see themselves beyond the surface levels in the text you choose. So when we're talking about mirrors, if Kim is in your class, she should see a reflection of herself in the literature that you pick. Like I should be able to look up and see, an African American kid who might be upper middle class and some of the things that I face on a daily. So just being really intentional about the text that you select so that when I look into the text that you've chosen, it's just like me looking into a mirror. Okay. So in the same breath, it is going to be vitally important that students see others beyond the surface level in the text that the teacher chooses. Okay, so this is where we're moving into the idea of mirrors and windows. I should see a reflection of myself, but as a teacher, it's important that you choose texts that allow me to see others beyond that's just the initial engagement with them and what I see on the surface. All right, so when we talk about windows, so as in part one, you had to identify what was your mirror. Okay, so remember those are the biases you hold. That is your teaching philosophy, that is the identity, your makeup, your experiences. So there can be a disconnect between the teacher and the students if the teacher doesn't take time to pause and say, what do I need to expose myself to so that I can be a little more relevant to the students that are in my classroom? So as a teacher, it might be, I need to expose myself to cultures to beyond classroom interaction. That means that my sole interaction as a teacher should not be just with that culture when they're in my classroom. Okay, to find out things that they love and that they do and engage yourself in it, whether you're reading up on it, whether you're attending events to get a feel for that particular culture. Religious beliefs of your students. Okay, now you might not want to get into teaching religious texts unless like you are an English 10 teacher or English 2 teacher. But it gives you an idea of what's important to them, their values, the things that the family holds of high esteem. So that's going to be important. And then as a teacher, texts that don't appeal to me but might appeal to my students. Because we talked about in part one, how sometimes we tend to choose texts that we like and that we like to teach, even though the class makeup is totally different and the text that they like might be something totally different than what we like. So it's stretching ourselves to do more to engage fully with our students. And then the same thing with your students. Now that you have a mirror of who your students are, when you look up at the makeup of your class, what do they need to be exposed to? I think about all of the kids why are all certain kids sitting together in the cafeteria, right? So when we talk about them being exposed to cultures outside of their inner circle, what will they face as adults? These are texts that we need to be aware of and mindful of when we are selecting them. Okay, so these aren't the only bullets that the students need in their window, but sometimes we know what our students need when we're talking about the other side of arguments, or be exposing them to social economic circumstances that are different from what they are exposed to. All right. So then lastly, as a teacher, you want to say, based on my frame, what type of text do I need to expose myself to from your mirror? And then based on the frame of my students, this is how they match. Based on their frame, what do I need to expose myself to more so that I can understand them? And so when you're planning for your students, you want to think about their frame and them having a mirror of text where the characters look like them, where the topics and the themes are things that they face in real life. And then as a student window, what do they need to be exposed to? Think of it as if they were to leave my classroom and never learn anything else about the world, have I exposed them and prepped them for the cultures they're going to have to engage with, for the conversations they're going to have to engage with? Okay. Are there any questions on that quick recap?
Miss Vine says, so the mirror is looking at others' perspectives. That's really more of the window.
Yes.
Looking out your window is the perspective of others and considering that.
Mm-hmm. So Ms. Vines, just to clarify, think about a mirror is a mirror. When you stand in the mirror, what do you see? Who are you as a person? And the same thing goes for your students. When they stand in the mirror, what do they see? Okay. And the goal is for you to be able to find text that is a mirror. If I hold that text up, Kim can see herself. If you have a teacher and she assigns a text and she holds it up, you as Latanya Nixon Vines can see yourself. That's the mirror. And then the window is the opposite perspective. That is what I meant. Yes. Okay, good. All right.
I mixed up mirror and window.
Window. Okay, good. All right. All right.
Okay, so it's time for us to do a little bit of practice, a little bit of engagement here. So if you will go to your chat bar, I just dropped the link for our participant PowerPoint for this portion of the presentation. So if you'll go ahead and open that up, you all should have editing rights.
It looks like everybody's getting in.
Okay, good.
Okay, perfect.
Ms. Brown, I just emailed you that link. So hopefully you can open it now as well. So as everybody's still getting that document opened up, I just wanted to add to what Kim said. I think that sometimes we tend to think Equitable ELA, if I do a little bit of African American Lit before the end of the year, like I've covered it. And I think what we're trying to point out to you and what Kim is saying is that the mirror that you give your students should be more than just that stereotypical, let me do this, just to check it off my list. Really getting to know your students and who they are and what they're interested in makes your class more engaging because the students they're interested. They want to do what you're assigning because they see themselves in the work. And then they trust you a lot more when you try to open that window. So there's a little bit of fear in their lack of knowledge. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice looking at some frames, looking at some windows and mirrors, and let you guys sort of think about how you would approach it if you were in these particular situations that we're going to give you. So Kim is going to put you in breakout rooms, and I think we can probably just leave off scenario 5 if you want to, Kim.
Yeah, I think we're going to do 3 people in a room. So we'll have 3 rooms going.
Okay. So when Kim puts you in the breakout room, your room number is going to be the scenario that you will look at. And in the scenario, you guys go through, read the teacher frame, read the student frame, think about, first of all, what does this teacher need to be exposed to in order to be the best teacher for this group of students? So think about what this teacher needs in his or her window. And then what do the students need to see in this classroom in order to see a reflection of themselves, their mirror? And then last but not least, what's the window that those students need? So you'll think about the topics, the text that might be really good to use, and maybe some strategies or ideas that might help these particular students. So if you're ready for breakout rooms, does anybody have any questions about your task before we let you go? Nope, everybody good?
All righty. We'll pop in a few. All right. You should see your breakout room in just a minute.
We're good now.
Okay.
All right, so welcome back to the main session. I hope that you had some good conversations and at least got some good dialogue started with your colleagues. Kim, will you flip it to that little breakout discussion slide? So we're going to just talk about we would like for you to present just a little bit of information about what you talked about in your group. So first of all, just give us a quick snapshot of who your teacher is and the student frame. Talk about, a summary of your conversation, what you guys, discussed, any high points of your conversation. And then one text from your group's charts and explain the rationale behind that. So the group that had scenario 1, who would you like to talk for you guys?
I'll go ahead and talk for us.
Okay.
So we had a 27-year-old white female raised in a predominantly rural white town with a Christian upbringing, middle class, bachelor's degree, 2-parent home, played volleyball, believes that everyone can learn. Oops, if I can move this. Believes that everyone can learn and that perseverance is a must. Her students are 14-year-old Latinos for the most part, half girls and boys with one Asian girl. She has 2 students with learning disabilities on top of their ELL barriers. They reside in a small, predominantly white neighborhood, low socioeconomic status, 80% are in the correct grade. Many of them live with extended families or traditional homes, but extended families are typical for that type of group, Latinos and Asians. Some parents have immigrated, a few illegally, but some are also, and they have limited education and English speaking. So for our first slide, what does your teacher need to be exposed in order to be the best teacher? We said that she, being a 27-year-old white female, would need to potentially expose herself to different Latino cultural events, researching why various cultures live with extended families, and then also that topics on families, like why is family so important or viewed differently in various cultures that are in her classroom. Then we said that the students would need to see culturally diverse books so that they can see people that look like them, but not just in the entertainment industry or on YouTube, because kids this age think if you're not on YouTube, you really aren't successful. So they need to step out of that and see people who are doctors or writers or, people who are in different governmental positions. They need to see people who are different and not just in the entertainment industry.
And what's one text you want to highlight? What one text that kind of stood out for you guys?
So we talked about the house on Mango Street. And we also talked about baseball Saved Us is another one that we had also mentioned.
Okay. All right, thank you. Group 2, Ms. Thurnow, Ms. Brown, who wants to talk for you guys?
I can. I don't mind.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. So we had scenario 2. So the teacher frame is a Black female, 27 years old, raised in a small country town, low socioeconomic status, public school education, pastor's kid, has a master's degree, raised by a single father. Theater, music, and art are, I guess, hobbies. Believes in self-reliance, compassion for people, and a strong work ethic. The student frame is predominantly white, 15 to 16-year-olds, half boys, half girls, with one Black student. Middle upper class, hunting and farming backgrounds. They enjoy reading, perfect grades, strong conservative ties, 10th grade. All are in the correct grade. A traditional family structure with maybe 5% from single parent families. And they have lived in a small community their entire lives. So there's stories of tradition passed down from elders, and they stay with the same group of kids. So we talked, and I talked a lot about how that student frame sounds a lot like the kids I teach. And so I'm just going to skip to what we talked about most, which was what do the students need to see in the classroom in order to see in a world beyond their own. And so we talked about some of the topics to cover are just cultures from other areas. What is identity? How do you define identity? How is it created? We talked a bit about the novel. Well, it's not a novel, it's a nonfiction text. The Other Wes Moore. And then we talked about choice reading, using discussions that are anonymous to allow them to kind of build some confidence to be able to talk about things that are maybe not the norm in their community. And so Flipgrid was just one of those that we talked about might be a good resource.
Okay, thank you. And group 3, the scenario 3, who would like to talk for you guys?
I guess I can talk for us.
Go for it.
All right, so our scenario was the teacher is a Black male. He's 25, and basically he's raised like in a northern upbringing, very affluent, upper class, went to private school, has a master's, 2-parent home. Some of his, I guess, hobbies would be lacrosse and chess, and he believes hard work gets you what you deserve. You don't get something for nothing. Basically, the students are predominantly Black students. They are mostly girls, one white girl. They're predominantly Black, but they're all 9th grade repeaters. So they basically share low socioeconomic standards. They're in a small southern town, 97% are Southern Baptist. And I forgot that about the teacher, he's agnostic. And there's a mixture of traditional and single parent homes. Something that they have, I guess, their hobbies are playing church, music, and bee making, playing the dozens, basketball, and cheerleading. And some have to adjust to family members being incarcerated. I can't read here, but basically, what we've been started to talk about, like as far as the teacher, what we started our conversation with the teacher's, I guess, perspective, his window, looking at them, and we came up with a common kind of topic that they could all share would be sports. And some of the texts that we talked about were, one of them was On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. And the strategies and approaches, I think that our group came with some really good ideas, like go to the basketball games of the students and go to even a church service and like kind of doing some kind of home visit, neighborhood visit, or even having guest speakers or mentors from the community. I think where we kind of got confused was were the text, maybe Kim and Melissa can answer this, but were the text supposed to be text that the teacher is reading or text that the students are reading?
So really the answer is both. So we wanted you to kind of look at what should the teacher, expose
Okay.
himself to, and then what should they expose the children to.
Okay. I think the majority of our conversation was what we're exposing the children to.
Good.
But something I was thinking a lot about was like small town. I was thinking about a book called God Don't Like Ugly. Mary Monroe. So if that was a teacher, I don't think we could read, that could be real to the students. But
Okay.
it's just kind of a small town perspective to an extent different. But Sarah also mentioned a text showing like a single parent household would be good.
Yep. Okay. So thank you guys for volunteering. We did have 2 more frames that we were going to discuss, but you can look at those in the participant PowerPoint in your spare time. I know you have so much of it. But we just wanted you to kind of think about different perspectives and different texts. And so you all now have the list of texts that we came up with. Just make yourself a copy of this PowerPoint and you'll have it at your fingertips. So thank you guys for participating.
Okay, so now we've talked about frames, and we've kind of stepped outside of the box and looked at teachers and students and what we need to expose ourselves to as teachers, and then what we need to expose our students to. So how do we open the window? So because we're running short on time, we're gonna kind of condense the next activity. But this is what it looks like. So we considered you guys to be our class. So Lane sent out a survey that asked basically about immigration. I know you guys are like, what in the world? Why in the world? What is up with this survey? So we knew that we were going to address the topic of immigration, but it was very important for us to understand where our class stood when it came to certain perspectives, right? So that way the text that we choose matches your stance, but the other text that we choose is your window into seeing things differently. And the only way for me as a teacher, or for us as teachers, to know that is to ask you basically where you stand on certain issues, okay? So at the top, you see our class makeup. And so we had 9 white females, 1 white male, 1 black male, and 4 black females. But we did not have any representation of the Latino population. And so we wanted to choose a topic that would open you up to a topic that you might not readily deal with. So we're opening the window outside of your own experience. So what do? We started with the standard, and that should drive every text that you choose. The standard drives the text, not the text driving the standard. So the standard that we chose was RI 8.9. And for this standard, we have to analyze a case in which 2 or more texts provide conflicting information on the same topic and identify where the texts disagree on matters of fact or interpretation. So this in itself, the standard in itself, opens up a way for us to use a text that is both a mirror and a window. So considering the mirrors and windows, we chose a topic that was most important for representation because it's relevant into today's society and what we're dealing with, but it's also beneficial to my students so that I can give them access to someone else's world outside of their own. So based on the survey, a lot of people agreed that immigration, as long as people are working towards it, can be a good thing. So my students need access to why some people choose immigration. All right, so I'm going to use 2 articles, and the students can become experts and analyze the information in each article. So when we think about our class, what did our group consider facts? And we're talking, when I say group, we're talking about you guys. Written statistics and data from experts. So as a teacher, you have to identify, what does my class consider facts? So being sure that you are looking from their perspective. What is the group's interpretation of the said topic? So overall, largely, the class said immigrants should be working towards citizenship. So as a teacher, I'm already thinking, what pushback will I get for this topic? And it is that anti-immigration article may cause some controversy, because if my class believes that immigration is okay as long as they're working towards citizenship, there might be some pushback with the anti-immigration article. How will I prep and respond? Now, as a teacher, anytime you're dealing with any type of controversial issue, you want to be sure that you remain neutral in certain conversations. And the best way to do that is to present articles from both sides and you discuss the views equally. Now, where do my students stand in class? They are pro-immigration. And then which issues are relevant to my student lives? So for you guys, it's wages and tax information. So when I go to select my text, I make sure that I pick something that's relevant to you. Okay. So if the standard says we're going to analyze the text. Now, the text is talking about conflicting information on the same topic from the text. It's not where we disagree with the text, it's where the texts are disagreeing. So a great place to find articles that deal with different viewpoints are going to be in these three locations: Points of View in NC Wise Owl, allsides.org, and procon.org. So when you're looking for multiple perspectives, we will make sure that we visit those sites so that we can pull and have a balanced approach when we're teaching to our students when it comes to mirrors and windows. So it is 4:04. So what we're going to do is, if you'll go back to your participant slide, you should be able to, I think the link is there. Am I right, Lane? Let's see. You should be able to have a link. Yes. So in your participant slide, I want you to take about 5 minutes and I want you to read both articles. And while you're reading both articles, I want you to identify what are some of the things that the text consider facts. Okay. And then we'll have a quick discussion. So let's take 5 minutes to look at both of those articles.
Looks like they're done.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's talk really quick, guys. So this is just an organizer that we can use to start the conversation. So where do the texts agree on facts? And since we're short on time, if you guys would just jumping in so we can get to the next two slides. Where do the texts agree on facts?
Well, I think that they both agree on the fact that immigration is a significant issue that affects our nation.
Yes, okay, good. They both agree that immigrant workers affect jobs. Yes. Is there one more? One that we pulled was that college educated immigrants are a benefit. So we see that in both texts. Okay. All right. So when we're looking at how is legal immigration must be carefully controlled, it talked about how there was a suppressing of wages for cost native-born worker jobs, that they use higher government programs, they pay less taxes, and crime and terrorism puts Americans at risk. And then the other article looked at immigrant labor raising gross domestic product, younger populations feed into the social security system, and immigrants become victims of American crimes. So what is the benefit, if someone would tell me, what is the benefit of offering both of these articles and having the students to fill in a graphic organizer such as this?
Well, it forces them to look at a perspective different from their own.
Absolutely. It forces them to look at a different perspective, so it gives them that window. Okay.
Increasing their critical thinking. We got that from Meredith. And then Heather also said that their opinions are more balanced because they have both sides.
That is it, Ms. Brown, making sure that the opinions are balanced, and it increases the critical thinking, because the goal is not to teach our students what to think, but to actually teach them how to think outside of us, outside of parents. It increases tolerance of multiple perspectives too. Absolutely. And so as a teacher, now that we've filled out this chart, we've read both articles, we've filled out this chart, this is a prime opportunity to now have discussion, a Socratic seminar about the particular issue that we're dealing with, right? Because now there is a balanced approach where you don't have people who are just shooting their opinions very loudly into the conversation. Okay, so that's just kind of something to keep in mind. So when we think about just a reflection on this very short lesson, because we had to get everything in under an hour, but we wanted you to see that we considered our class makeup. And so that's always important. Take that student profile, look at your student class makeup, and determine which topics and texts are going to be beneficial to who they are as individuals, but largely to who they are as citizens in this society. So we took the current viewpoint to validate, okay, you were not wrong per se in your thinking, but I do want you to see that there is another side to the coin, which is us offering that window by having that opposing viewpoint. And everything doesn't always have to be pro-con. Sometimes it's just, yes, this is a truth, but here is another truth, and I need for you to recognize that as well. Okay. All right. So Lane is going to wrap it up with your equitable planning document and how you can take this into your classroom.
So what we did on this document is we just kind of put the questions that we used to brainstorm or how we were going to approach this lesson. And you know, we sort of did it just thinking through, but sometimes it's better to kind of have something on a document. So on your equitable participation or participant PowerPoint, the last slide gives you a link to force a copy of this planning document for you. The other thing, if you will skip to the next slide, Kim. Last but not least, we do want to know what your biggest takeaways are from this session, and I'm dropping this link to the Padlet in the chat bar. So if you will, and there's the address to it too if you just want to type it, but if you will go to this Padlet and just think about today and yesterday and your discussions and the things that we've talked about. Overall, what's been your biggest takeaway from these two sessions? What are you leaving here with? So if you just take a second and respond on that Padlet, we'll all be able to see your responses. And this, as you guys are typing, this is another way that you can give those students that anonymity in the classroom, so that, you know, if you do have a group that's a little bit, they're more shy about maybe differing from the norm, this could be a very easy way to get feedback, a good assessment of what's going on in your classroom. So a lot of you are saying that one of your takeaways has just been really thinking about your own mirror and your own window. Like, what do you need to be the best teacher. And I think that's really important. The Padlet link, here, I'm gonna drop it again for you. It's right here in the chat bar, Ms. Bynes. And really, teachers needing to really consider those frames, the whole student, not just the stereotypes or the biases that we're bringing into the classroom, that actual student frame.
Yeah, and while they're typing, someone did put in there allsides.com, which is a great resource when you have time to get to it. It shows you aside from the left thinking, it shows you aside from the right thinking, and then it shows you right down the middle when it comes to viewpoints and bias.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so as you guys are finishing up, Kim and I hope that, you know, you've got something from this session, so please make sure that you make yourself a copy of that participant PowerPoint so that you'll have the notes from all of the group discussions there, and also the link to the planning document if you would like to go to that. Please make sure that you take the survey on ProTrax in order to get the credit for this. And we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Yes. Get you so much needed rest this weekend. Y'all have been a great group.
Thank you so much, guys.